The night of my husband's company gala was supposed to be the happiest evening of our marriage. Instead, it became the night he made the biggest mistake of his life. As I stood in front of the bedroom mirror adjusting my navy blue dress, Ethan barely looked up from his phone. "You're seriously wearing that?" he asked with a sigh. I smiled nervously. I thought it looked elegant. "It looks average." I forced myself to laugh. "We're just going to a company event." He finally looked at me, rolled his eyes, and said the words that still echo in my mind. "You embarrass me, Claire. Tonight is important. The executives will be there. Try not to make me regret bringing you." My heart dropped. For 6 years, I had supported Ethan through every promotion, every late night, every stressful project. When he lost his first management position, I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. When he wanted to earn his MBA, I paid almost every household bill so he could focus on school. I never asked for credit. I just wanted him to succeed. Yet somehow, I had become an embarrassment. The ballroom looked like something from a movie. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above hundreds of elegantly dressed guests. Live music filled the room while waiters carried silver trays through the crowd. The company logo glowed across a massive stage where awards would soon be presented. Ethan immediately disappeared into a group of executives without introducing me. Every time I tried standing beside him, he quietly stepped away. Whenever someone asked who I was, he simply answered, "My wife." Nothing more. No pride. No smile. Just obligation. An hour later, I stood alone near the dessert table pretending to enjoy a slice of cheesecake. I overheard 2 women whispering nearby. "Is that Ethan's wife?" "I think so." I expected someone different. They laughed softly. I pretended not to hear. Then Ethan walked over. Instead of comforting me, he leaned close and whispered, "Please stop standing by yourself. People already think you're awkward." I stared at him. "I've been alone because you left me." He shrugged. "Networking matters more than babysitting." Then he walked away again. I wanted to leave. I even reached for my purse. But something inside me refused. I had spent too many years making myself smaller for someone else's comfort. Not tonight. As I took a deep breath, the ballroom suddenly grew quiet. The master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our CEO." Everyone applauded. The doors opened. The CEO entered, surrounded by board members and senior executives. People rushed toward him hoping for a quick conversation. Ethan straightened his tie and whispered to his coworkers, "This is my chance." He hurried forward. I stayed where I was. The CEO greeted employees one by one. Then, his eyes locked onto mine. For a second, I thought he was looking past me. But then he smiled. A genuine smile. Without hesitation, he walked directly across the ballroom. Straight toward me. The CEO stopped right in front of me. For a moment, the room went completely silent. Then he smiled even wider and said, "Claire? Is that really you?" I blinked in surprise. It's been years. Before I could answer, he wrapped me in a warm, respectful hug. The entire ballroom froze. I could practically feel hundreds of eyes staring at us. Even Ethan looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. "You remember me?" I asked. "Remember you?" The CEO laughed. "Claire, I wouldn't be standing here without you." Now everyone was listening. Years earlier, before he had become CEO, he'd been invited to speak at a community business workshop where I volunteered. His presentation had crashed when his laptop failed minutes before he went on stage. I had calmly helped recover his files, set up another system, and even stayed late to organize the event after everyone else left. He never forgot that kindness. "I've told that story dozens of times," he said. "The woman who helped me when she had absolutely nothing to gain." People nearby smiled. Ethan didn't. The CEO looked at me again. "I've tried finding you over the years. Your old email stopped working." I moved, I said quietly. "Well, I'm glad fate finally brought us together." Ethan quickly forced a smile and stepped beside me. "Sir, I'm Ethan, Claire's husband." The CEO shook his hand politely, but his attention immediately returned to me. "You must be incredibly proud of your wife." Ethan nodded awkwardly. "Of course." The CEO tilted his head. She is one of the sharpest business minds I've ever met. Ethan's smile faded. What do you mean? The CEO chuckled. Claire gave me 3 ideas that night after the workshop. One of them completely changed how I approached customer service. I could barely remember mentioning them. I was just sharing my opinion. And it was brilliant. Several executives exchanged surprised glances. One whispered, "She's the Claire." Another nodded. "I've heard him mention her before." Ethan stared at me as though he were seeing a stranger. For 6 years, he dismissed every suggestion I'd made, every business article I shared, every idea I'd offered. Now the most respected person in the company was praising those same ideas. The CEO turned toward the crowd. I'd like everyone's attention for a moment. The ballroom became silent again. I often tell our leadership team that success is built on character, not titles. He gestured toward me. This woman showed kindness to someone she believed she'd never see again. She expected nothing in return. A round of applause filled the room. I felt my face grow warm. The CEO smiled. "Claire, would you join me at the head table tonight?" Gasps spread across the ballroom. The head table was reserved for board members and senior executives. Even Ethan wasn't invited to sit there. I don't want to take someone else's seat. It's yours if you'll accept. I hesitated before quietly saying, "Thank you." As I walked beside the CEO toward the front of the ballroom, I glanced back. Ethan remained standing exactly where I'd left him. For the first time since we'd met. He looked embarrassed. I had never imagined sitting at the head table. Not because I thought I didn't belong there. Because for years, I had been convinced I didn't deserve to. As dinner was served, the CEO introduced me to board members, investors, and department heads. Every conversation felt natural. No one looked down on me. No one treated me like I didn't belong. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't someone's wife. I was simply me. Across the ballroom, I noticed Ethan glancing toward the head table every few minutes. Each time our eyes met, he quickly looked away. Halfway through dinner, the CEO leaned toward me. "So, Claire, what are you doing these days?" I smiled politely. "I run a small nonprofit that helps single mothers learn bookkeeping and financial planning." His eyebrows rose. "Really?" "It's not a huge organization, but we've helped more than 400 women find stable jobs over the last 3 years." "You never mentioned that." I laughed softly. "You never asked." He shook his head in disbelief. "That's remarkable." One of the board members spoke up. "Our company has been looking for a community partner for our new outreach program." The CEO looked at him, then back at me. "I think we may have just found the perfect one." My heart skipped a beat. "I'd love to hear more." Before I could say another word, the lights dimmed. The awards ceremony was beginning. Employees clapped as different departments were recognized. Finally, the host smiled. "Our next award is the Leadership Excellence Award." The screen displayed Ethan's picture. The applause was loud. He confidently walked onto the stage. I smiled despite everything. A small part of me was still proud of the man I thought he could become. He accepted the trophy and adjusted the microphone. "I'd like to thank my incredible team." He thanked his coworkers, his managers, his mentors, even the clients. Then he looked toward the audience. "And finally, my wife, Claire." I waited. "For supporting me." That was all. One sentence. After 6 years. The audience applauded politely. He walked off the stage. Minutes later, the CEO returned to the microphone. "I'd like to make one additional recognition tonight." Everyone became quiet. Leadership isn't only measured inside an office. He looked directly at me. Sometimes, the strongest leaders change lives without asking for applause. He invited me onto the stage. My hands trembled as I walked forward. The CEO handed me the microphone. "I know public speaking wasn't on your schedule tonight," he joked. The audience laughed. I smiled. "I honestly don't know what to say." "Tell them the truth." I looked around the ballroom. Hundreds of faces were watching. I spent years believing that supporting someone else was enough. The room became silent. I thought love meant staying quiet, making yourself smaller, celebrating someone else's success while hiding your own. I glanced toward Ethan. He couldn't meet my eyes. But tonight reminded me of something important. You should never be ashamed of who you are just because someone else refuses to see your worth. Several people nodded. Some even stood and applauded before I had finished speaking. When I stepped away from the microphone, the applause grew louder. Much louder. It lasted nearly a full minute. As I returned to my seat, I noticed Ethan standing alone near the back of the ballroom. No one was congratulating him anymore. Everyone wanted to meet the woman he had called an embarrassment just a few hours earlier. By the end of the evening, executives, managers, and employees formed a line just to introduce themselves to me. Ethan watched every second of it. And for the first time in our marriage, he realized exactly what he had taken for granted. When the gala finally ended, I walked toward the valet stand, hoping to leave before another awkward conversation with Ethan. I never made it that far. Claire. I turned around. Ethan was jogging toward me, his tie loosened and his expression nothing like the confident man I'd arrived with. Can we talk? I folded my arms. You've had 6 years to talk. I know. No, I said calmly. You really don't. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he sighed. I was wrong. I waited. I shouldn't have said those things before the gala. Which things? His eyes dropped. Calling you an embarrassment. Hearing him repeat the words somehow hurt even more than hearing them the first time. You know what bothered me the most? I asked. It wasn't the insult. It was that you actually believed it. He opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. I spent years cheering for every promotion you earned. Every late night. Every business trip. Every achievement. I never asked for attention. I only wanted respect. I know. No. I shook my head. You only know because everyone else saw what happened tonight. His shoulders slumped. The truth hit harder than any argument. Just then, the CEO walked outside with several board members. There you are, Claire. He smiled warmly. I was hoping you hadn't left yet. I was just heading home. Before you go, I'd like to invite you to lunch next week. Lunch. Our foundation is launching a national financial literacy initiative. We need someone who understands people, not just spreadsheets. I think you'd be perfect. I stared at him, speechless. Are you serious? Completely. It would be a paid consulting position. One of the board members added with a grin, and judging by tonight, we'd be lucky if you accepted. Ethan looked as though the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. The CEO shook my hand. I'll have my assistant call you tomorrow. I'd be honored. After they left, Ethan whispered. You never told me you could do all this. I laughed quietly. I tried. So many times. You just never listened. The drive home was painfully silent. Normally, Ethan filled every quiet moment with stories about work. Tonight, there was nothing to say. When we reached the house, I walked inside without waiting for him. I changed into comfortable clothes, removed my makeup, and sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. A few minutes later, Ethan entered. He placed his award on the counter. It made a soft metallic sound. Then he looked at it. For a long time. Finally, he picked it up and placed it inside a cabinet. Not on display. Not on the fireplace. Hidden away. I don't feel like I earned it tonight, he admitted. I looked at him. You earned the award. But you also revealed who you've become. Tears filled his eyes. I don't know when I changed. I do. I answered softly. You started measuring people's value by their job titles. And somewhere along the way, you forgot mine. The next morning, my phone rang before breakfast. It was the CEO's assistant. She confirmed the lunch meeting and emailed me the proposal. As I read through the details, my hands began to shake. It wasn't just a consulting role. They wanted me to help design the company's nationwide community outreach program. It was the kind of opportunity people dreamed about for years. Ethan stood behind me. That's incredible. I nodded. It is. Then I closed my laptop. I have another appointment today. What appointment? I called a lawyer this morning. His face turned pale. A lawyer? Yes. For the first time in years. I'm choosing myself. Ethan didn't say a word after I mentioned the lawyer. He simply stared at me, hoping I would smile and tell him it was a joke. I didn't. For years, I had forgiven every insult, Every broken promise, every moment he made me feel invisible. This wasn't about one terrible night. The gala had only exposed what our marriage had become. The following week, I met the CEO and several members of the executive team. They didn't treat me like someone's spouse. They treated me like a professional. For 3 hours, we discussed financial education, community partnerships, and ways to help struggling families. Every idea I shared was written down. Every opinion was respected. When the meeting ended, the CEO smiled. I made the right decision. So did we, one of the directors added. We'd like to offer you the position. I looked at the contract. The salary was more than Ethan had earned when he received his first promotion. For a second, I couldn't speak. I accept. Everyone around the table applauded. As I walked out of the building, my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Can we have dinner tonight? Please. I almost ignored the message. Instead, I replied, 1 hour. Public place. That evening, he was already waiting when I arrived. There were flowers on the table. He stood up as I approached. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't. He nodded. I deserve that. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to defend himself. I'm sorry, Claire. I know those words don't erase what I did. They don't. I spent so much time chasing success that I forgot the person who helped me reach it. I quietly stirred my coffee. You didn't forget. You stopped appreciating me. He lowered his head. You're right. I've been in therapy since the gala. That caught me by surprise. I realized something. I've spent years needing everyone else's approval. My promotions. My titles. My reputation. They became my identity. And when I thought you didn't fit the image I wanted, I pushed you away. There were tears in his eyes. I hate the man I became. For the first time since that awful night, I believed he was telling the truth. But believing someone has changed isn't the same as trusting them again. I hope therapy helps you. It already has. I hope you become the man you wanted to be. He looked at me carefully. What about us? I took a slow breath. I honestly don't know. A month later, our lives looked completely different. My new role took me across the country, speaking at conferences and leading community projects. The program expanded faster than anyone expected. Thousands of families enrolled. News outlets began covering our work. One morning, I walked into the office and saw a framed newspaper article hanging in the lobby. The headline made me stop. One woman's kindness sparked a movement that changed thousands of lives. Underneath was my photograph. The CEO walked over with a grin. I thought you'd like seeing that. I smiled. I never imagined my life would look like this. He laughed. Neither did the rest of us. 6 months after the gala, I received an invitation to the company's annual leadership conference. This time, I wasn't attending as someone's guest. I was the keynote speaker. As I stepped onto the stage, more than 1,000 people stood and applauded. In the front row sat executives, board members. And Ethan. He wasn't sitting there as my husband. We had finalized our divorce a few weeks earlier. He had respected my decision. When my speech ended, he waited until everyone else had left before walking over. You were incredible. Thank you. I just wanted to tell you something. I nodded. You were never an embarrassment. I was too blind to see the extraordinary woman standing beside me. I smiled gently. I know. And now, so do you. He extended his hand. I shook it. There was no anger left. No bitterness. Just acceptance. As I walked away, I realized something that had taken me years to learn. The greatest revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. It's building a life so full of purpose, confidence, and joy that you no longer need their approval.